if you wanted to create an NFT, what would be the steps in your opinion? How can someone make this successful?
There are, in my opinion, four main factors of success. One is the community. If you have a community around your brand, your music, whatever, you will be able to sell your art. Second one, and I think basically the success of this biggest NFT drops, it's some partner as a NFT collector, because a lot of NFT traders, they monitor the wallets of big collectors, and whatever they buy, these collectors, a lot of other buyers start to buy. Metaverse is also a tool where you can easily buy stuff because you can see it from different angles. I mean, it's more immersive, so it's kind of easier to buy in many e-com categories.
And boom, we're live. Welcome, Tony Simonovsky.
Hey Sven, thanks for having me.
Great that you're here with us. So you're the CEO and founder of InsightWhale.com, a data-driven marketing company. You also do Ko-Fire, a Web3 music value chain. And you're involved in Oasis DAO. That's pretty interesting projects. How did you actually get there? How did you become an entrepreneur, and how did you get involved in these kinds of things?
Yeah, I'll start a bit pretty back in the past. I started my first company around almost 20 years ago when I was under 20 years old. And to your question about when I become an entrepreneur, I actually started my first small venture in my when I used to be still a school kid. I don't know if you or your viewers would know that game, but we used to have a game with kind of carton, paper circles, which you put one on one, and then you need to hit them with another thing which is more it weighs a bit more, and then whichever turns backwards, you win this kind of things. So I was winning all the time, and then rich kids were like, okay, we lost everything, can you sell us a bit? So I started to sell them and started to actually get my first money. But yeah, later I started to get interested in the web stuff. It was around 21 years ago, and I remember building my first website for $70. I was super happy because it was one of my first money which I actually earned by doing stuff. And later on, I started my first agency, which was an SEO agency. Was a local one in Moscow. Was running it for around, I think, 8 years, something like that. Then I sold it to another company, a bigger one. And then I was, after 8-10 years in SEO, I was actually tired of this business, and I was thinking what to do next. And analytics, digital analytics, conversion rate optimization was a very natural next move for me, because when I started SEO, it was very early days of digital marketing in general, and we were it was easy for us to get the sites to the top pages and top results of the search engines. And whatever site was on top, it made huge sales. But then the sites in general started to improve the usability and stuff like that. But we were working mainly with small businesses. They didn't invest in UX and stuff. So though we provided good positions, they were not happy with the results because they didn't do sales. So it was natural for me to think, actually, how can I help them further? Started to dive into analytics, conversion rate optimization, and that's how I started InsightWhale. Was in 2014. So have been doing analytics and CRO ever since. And talking about crypto, I joined in 2017 and was very fast. I joined with my marketing expertise, helped 3 big ICOs raise money, raised a total around $50 million for 3 ICOs, and was so astonished by this new industry and what
sorry,
it
50
has.
million.
Yeah, but it was not everything that I would say. Maybe our contribution was maybe 20-30% of that sum, but 50 million is in total what this company has raised in the public sales.
That's pretty astonishing. How does an ICO, I mean, I know that you also consult companies who want to do ICOs. So my question is, as a company, like, how would I decide to make an ICO? Like, what would be like the intention or the use case for it? Like, for example, I have a company, Digistore24, it's a big affiliate network and resale platform. I make a lot of sales. Would it make sense for me to consider an ICO? What would it bring to me? Like, who should consider doing an ICO except for just the money? I mean, I want to create value ultimately for our clients, for our customers, just like every normal entrepreneur. And so we have a fairly big brand. As a company, would it make sense for me to consider an ICO? And if yes, what does it take to make successful?
ICO per se is almost not a thing anymore. I was helping launch this ICOs back in 2017 and 18, 19 a bit. I mean, some people still call it ICO, but now there are a bit different forms of fundraising from public. It's IDO, for example, initial DEX offering. It's a bit more secure for the investors, because in the ICO age, it was kind of totally crazy. You could just publish your wallets, say something, oh, we are creating this crazy big thing, and people would just send you money, and you basically didn't owe them anything practically. And that's why there were so many scams in those years. Today, the market is a bit more civilized, though we still have a lot of stuff to do on this front. And to your question about should you consider, or any of our listeners, doing a fundraising through a token offering in crypto, it will very much depend on what the company is doing. In general, a token is just a representation of some value. So if you can, in your kind of community, there is some value that is not captured properly yet, and you can capture it with a token, you can consider it. I mean, most of the businesses, the traditional businesses that are outside of crypto, there are not so many use cases yet for creation of a token. It's if you are crypto first, I mean, yeah, obviously you can think of which value you can create, and the token will just help you capture that increasing value. For the companies outside of this world, it's still mainly financial companies, kind of remittance, payments. Some advertising companies are also going in that direction, but still I haven't seen any big use cases in this area. I mean, in general, crypto, it's a big sandbox. So basically, if you feel that you can create that value and capture it, crypto is about experimentation. Just try, experiment. And I think that's actually one of the biggest strengths of the crypto market in general is that there is so much experimentation happening that in the percentage-wise, the conversion to the good projects is very small. But overall, in the absolute numbers, there are so many revolutionary products being created, and it's because of that huge number of experiments, the absolute number of successes is much more than in other areas. I mean, now we even don't call it crypto; it's more Web3 as opposed to Web2, and Web3 is going that fast because it has the power to experiment, fail, but then find something really revolutionary.
Yes. So I think from a company's perspective, I would consider ICOs if I would, for example, like if I would like to go public, for example, and if I, let's say, wanted to have a big investment, and instead of having one single investor, for example, I would like to have a community, and this community, so, and I want less bureaucracy. For example, if I would go public, it would be very hard, to keep up with all the regulations. So that would be like a ton of administrative work, in my opinion. And, so if I want it to be less bureaucratic, I think I would consider an ICO, because I still can get funds that I can, and this is not, of course, like, this is my ethics as an entrepreneur, that I transparently tell people about the progress and what's being done with the money. And I think this is what a lot of scams did in the past. They just collected money. It was a hype. It was kind of like a bubble, and they got all this money, and some of the scams never intended actually to create any value. They just pocketed the money and it went to parties and stuff like that. And I think, but I still think it's a very good tool, like in a non-bureaucratic, low administrative way to collect money, not being it like a loan, not in form of a loan, not in form of stocks, but less bureaucratic. But then, usually, like, for example, I consider this as a Web2 company, or anyone who's listening, is like, I think most of the people who are listening are Web2 companies, which means that they have a normal online marketing type of business, which is paid via credit cards, etc., etc. So it's still an interesting thought. But then if I just imagine, like, I'm kind of new to this, if I imagine releasing a coin and bringing a coin to the public, of course I want to be transparent. I want to tell people what's going on with the coin. Fine. But I think just like with stocks, the real challenge is to maintain the value of it. And this is, in my opinion, like, looking from the outside, as an outsider, the challenge, because I'm calling myself outsider because I've never done an ICO or something like that. So how do I maintain the value of that coin? Let's assume I would release a coin. And how can this, like, stay valuable?
Yeah, that's a good question. I first just wanted to comment on your thought about the regulation. So I would be cautious here, because though technically, as you're not using banks here, you can do that fundraising, but still you will be the regulations. The regulators will still kind of look at you. And right now, for example, these fundraising companies, they almost don't happen anymore. And so to your question about how to maintain the value, it's a good question that is, I would say, not fully solved yet. In general, I mean, there is such thing as tokenomics, so you should always think of how much value potentially you can create, and not to create the volume of tokens that will constantly devalue them, not to create a limited supply of tokens, so that if the value increases, the number of tokens still stay the same. And in this case, basically the value of each token increases. Then there can be a very strong use case for the token. And with very strong use case, you can even have the unlimited supply, just releasing small portions of new tokens through the time, but knowing that there is a constant and increasing demand for the token. Mm-hmm. Gaming is a very good example for that, or actually advertising as well. Any kind of company which sells something that is kind of consumable, you can use that model, and that's a pretty sustainable model, though, again, in the token world, we're still very much dependent on the market cycles. So however good use case you have, if the whole market goes down, the token will also go down with it. But when the market goes up, if you have a strong use case, your token will go much higher than otherwise.
Yes.
And also, when you were basically thinking out loud about ICOs, that brought me to a very interesting thought I never occurred to me before. So you were saying that, okay, ICOs, we want to kind of have people co-own that company. And that's what brings us to the DAO, which is one of my main topics in crypto now. And I didn't make that link before, that ICO and DAO are kind of relatives. And DAO is exactly that token generation event where you distribute tokens for the community, and then the community both co-owns that company, Web3 company, and also can manage that company, can make decisions, can vote on some decisions in the future of the company. Plus, all the money that are raised can be again governed by that community, so that it's not, okay, these 5 guys, the core team, raised that money and they can do whatever with them. Normally, the community decides where this money goes to, and they have actually the power to block any decisions from the team to use this money maliciously or to their own
good, yeah.
To their own good. Yeah, I mean, it's not ideal yet. We still are inventing the models which will work like I described, but we're going there, and it's much better than it used to be in the ICO world.
Yes. I cannot really think of any other use case for an entrepreneur. Like, why did people make ICOs other than like building a community and like, except for the scams? Like, what were like the reasons and the motives to do an ICO? Just to do a coin and then just like play central bank, or like what other motives or intentions did they have? I mean, the legitimate ones.
Yeah, I mean, officially, ICO is just a fundraising method. So officially, these companies were raising to develop a product, because most of them didn't have a product. They didn't have nothing. Some of them had at least white paper, but there were many cases where there was just a landing page with like a few lines, like, okay, we'll build that, I don't know, like spaceship or whatever, like some like very crazy stuff. And some of them raised like millions, dozens of millions of dollars. But in general, better companies had maybe already an MVP and a white paper where they explained how this money are intended to be used. Like, for example, so much we need for the product building, so much we need for marketing, for strategic investment, so on and so forth.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that makes sense. So if I'm a company and I want to do an ICO, what would be the steps? Like if I intended that, what would you do?
Let's try to go away from ICO. Let's think of a DAO more, like, because it's a more kind of to current realities of the realities of the market. Yeah. And generally, DAO is basically a community of people that have the same goals, share the same values, and have some wallet that they collectively manage. it's not yet for any business. There are certain use cases that where they are very good. It's, for example, media will be very good because we can collectively create content, curate content, and be a part of that community that creates content around whatever, NFTs or DAOs or maybe marketing. Another big use case is protocols. Basically, right now, Web3 is a web of protocols, meaning that the Web 2 was the web and still is the web of applications. Basically, the companies like Facebook, they are more applications, and they run the market. While and they actually own all the data we are giving to them. Even us, we don't own that data. In the Web3, it's an internet of protocols, meaning that there is some basic set of primitives for some specific thing. For example, a protocol for building social networks. There are already a few of those on the market, and anyone can build their own Facebook, Instagram, or whatever on top of them. And the cool thing is that the users that are using these apps on top of the protocols, they are not tied to these specific apps. They can easily take back their data from the app and say move from Facebook 1 to Facebook 2 without like super seamlessly. And Facebook 1, which they abandoned, will never have access to their data anymore. So that's really cool about that. So basically, there are some other use cases. How do we start a DAO? Generally, it's there is a thing called progressive decentralization, where initially you start centralized, like a group of people, and then you start building the community. And once you have a pretty good community, then you create the token and distribute it to the early community. And then basically that community already co-owns that thing, governs, and stuff like that. At some point, there can be a fundraising, but it really depends on the project you have. So protocols, normally they start with fundraising. Then they create community, they distribute the tokens to the community, and the community actually owns the part of that protocol as well as the early investors.
And that's very interesting. Thank you. So, how do you then, how is the power distribution then organized? Is it like the community has certain powers and certain things to decide? Who decides what the community actually can decide about? And is it like a thing that if I start this thing, is it like something I define, or is it like governed in any other way?
Yeah. So the governance is one of the biggest areas where there is a lot of experimentations happening. There are some models that are already working, but we constantly see some people actually abusing their power in these protocols, but we learn from that and we create better models. But in general, again, it's a progressive decentralization where the core team initially decides some rules, and they can say, for example, this part of the decisions will always be, will decide always in the core team, and another part of the decisions can be governed by the community. But the ideal is that in the end of this process of progressive decentralization, the full power is given to the community. For example, normally the protocols are the best use cases here because we can actually give the full power to the community. Because in the protocols, the incentive, there is a strong incentive and also strong, in some cases, strong countermeasures which prevent you from abusing your power by, because in this case, your actual stake of these tokens can be at risk. For example, if you abuse the power, your some of your tokens can be slashed, you lose them, and basically you lose part of your portfolio. In some cases, you can do something bad for the protocol, but to do something bad, you need to actually own a lot of these tokens, like, I don't know, millions, dozens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars of worth of these tokens. So if you do something bad, then your hundreds of millions of dollars can become $10 million or even less. So there are strong incentives, both in the positive and negative way, for bad actors not to do bad things. But still, again, it's a lot of experimentation here. We don't still have a bulletproof solution. So that's why I'm very excited to be in this place, because basically we're inventing this space.
Yeah, we're playing around with new things. Another recent phenomenon are NFTs. What do you personally think of NFTs, and do you invest in them?
I think as a technology, NFT first doesn't have any competitors, because before NFTs, we didn't have any way to prove the ownership of any digital asset. So, for example, if we bought a song somewhere, a file, just had a copy, but we could there was no way to prove that we actually bought it and not copied. The NFT technology gives a basis to actually prove that you actually bought that, and because of that, you can actually resell that. Because if I bought just a file as a song, I couldn't resell it. So it's not an asset. It's not a liability, but it's consumable. I bought it, so okay, spent the money, I cannot return it. With the NFT, I actually bought something, and I have an asset that I can resell. Maybe for a profit, maybe for a loss, doesn't matter, but it still has some value at every certain point in time.
Okay, and did you buy NFTs?
Had some question. Sorry?
Did you buy any NFT?
Yeah, I started to play around with NFTs maybe 7-8 months ago, maybe a bit more. Initially, I mean, with any new thing which is kind of revolutionary, I like my approach is normally fake it till you make it. So I was just buying any possible NFTs, understanding that most of them I will probably lose money. But on doing that, I actually started to learn pretty fast. Currently, I almost don't buy the picture NFTs, but the Cofire project you mentioned basically is the project where we are experimenting with the NFT technology to find models, to better models than we have now to distribute music, to for the artists to get paid in a more transparent way, in a more kind of what's the word for that? More fair way. Because right now, most of the pie is, most of the value is captured by major music labels. And most of the artists, especially the indie artists, they're not getting the value back. So we're trying to use the NFT technology to solve some of the problems of the music industry. Okay. So I'm very bullish on the NFT as a technology, to answer your question.
Thanks. Yeah, just for the audience. So NFTs are basically, in my opinion, kind of like certificates of ownership in the blockchain. And in some cases, the actual file that you own, like CryptoPunks, are in the blockchain, are stored in the blockchain. In some cases, it's just a hyperlink. It's a link to somewhere else. The problem with that is that whoever owns the link destination kind of decides about like the file. So hypothetically, and this is also like a big criticism that, you know, people who criticize NFTs say, hey, if someone like who controls the server to which this hyperlink points to and replaces the file, you cannot really do anything about it, right? So how do you see that?
No, you're absolutely right. And as any nascent, very young market, there are still a lot of glitches. Some NFT creators, as you mentioned, really put the files on some centralized servers, which is, I mean, a very bad idea to do, at least for the buyer. But there are already decentralized file sharing services like IPFS. Some others are coming. So there, the NFT links to some location in the decentralized file system. So it's much more difficult to shut down this file. I mean, right now probably it's still possible because the network of the computers that actually store is not that big, but in the near future it will be basically as difficult as trying to steal a Bitcoin by actually hacking the Bitcoin system.
Yeah, that hacking is very hard. So a lot of people ask me, I want to do an NFT, and how can I launch an NFT successfully? I think it's kind of like the same with the tokens. We were like recently talking about fungible tokens. NFTs are non-fungible tokens, so that they can't be interchanged with anything else. How do you see that? If you were an artist, for example, if you were a painter or like some influencer, and if you wanted to create an NFT, what would be the steps in your opinion? How can someone make this successful?
There are, in my opinion, four main factors of success. One is the community. If you have a community around your brand, your music, whatever, you will be able to sell your art. Maybe not in huge volumes initially, but as the community grows, you will have more and more sales. Second one, and I think right now it's how the most successful NFT drops are basically the reason for the success of these biggest NFT drops. It's some partner as a NFT collector, because a lot of NFT traders, they monitor the wallets of big collectors, and whatever they buy, these collectors, a lot of other buyers start to buy. So if you do a drop and some collector with dozens of millions of worth of NFTs in their wallet buys one NFT, so you're sold out pretty much instantly. So if you can make friends with such collector and sign some other deal, you're pretty much successful.
Cool.
The third one is partnerships with some protocols. For example, a lot of DeFi protocols are now starting to use NFTs as just some ticket to enter some community or some other access point, but they are not always using some art in their tokens. So artists can actually collaborate with these projects and put their art in the NFTs, which have the basic utility in this DeFi or other projects. This way, creating both the community and some sales. And there is the fourth one, which I forgot. I'll try to remember it later. Okay, we were recently discussing in our team, and was just dropped from my head.
If it comes to your head again, please interrupt. Anything else? It's so exciting because, so many people want to launch NFTs, and it's kind of a riddle because, you got this Discord groups with the community and they have all like these channels. So it seems like a lot of work. And if you're, let's say, an artist and you don't have a team, it's kind of hard to, set up all these Discord groups, but you need that Discord, these Discord channels in order to look serious. Because, if I, for example, I also buy NFTs, the first thing I do when I decide about buying an NFT or not is I look at the community in the Discord channels. And if it looks very empty and nothing, then probably I'm not going to buy it, because ultimately the community, just like with fungible tokens will decide about the value and the future value of it. Because imagine you would release an NFT and would just go down in value because it's very visible, and that would just make you look bad. So I think it's very important to really figure out how you can maintain the value in the long term so that you don't look bad. A lot of celebrities, they bring out, like Logan Paul, they bring out fairly expensive NFTs at their release, like $2,000, for example, and then they drop in value. And that I think that's not super cool. In my opinion, I would start like another tip would be start at the lower price because the space is new, so that the value goes up, or at least kind of stays the same. But if you go like super high just because you have a big name and it goes down because you're new to the space, I think that would be in general a bad idea. NFTs are the kind of like the thing in the metaverse. People understand metaverse as like virtual reality that you use with 3D goggles. How do you personally see the metaverse? Do you think it's like, do you think people are going to spend a lot of time in it and it will become a big part of our lives? Or do you see it like just like with video games that people spend some time in it? How do you see that?
I mean, there will definitely be quite a lot of people spending a lot of time on it. Though I cannot imagine the time frame when we reach the point of that movie. What was it in English? The First Player something. Mm-hmm. There was a movie where all the people were basically living in these goggles mm-hmm. and inside that virtual world. I'm not sure when we come to that point, but the AR experience, I think it's pretty close, probably 5 to 10 years, where you use that like the spectacles like we use mm-hmm. now, but you have a camera and a projector where you see some additional objects overlaid on the reality, like for example some navigation stuff, some additional maybe art on top of stuff, and so on and so forth. This I think is pretty close, this type of metaverse, and probably also a lot of work will be done in the kind of fully immersive metaverse, and basically that's what Meta is doing. They're focusing mainly on the work environment, creating like virtual offices where you're kind of in the room with your coworkers, or in, I don't know, on a beach or whatever. You see them, but you sit wherever you are.
And
so, yeah.
If you look at it from, let's say, the Web 2 point of view, where a lot of people trying to make sales online and convert, how do you see that actually in the metaverse? Like, do you think as a company, like any online retailer, any online shop should look for possibilities to sell stuff in the AR metaverse and the fully immersive metaverse? Do you think that will be monopolized by Facebook / Meta? Or do you think other companies that are not Amazon or Facebook still will have a chance in the future to sell stuff online? How do you see that? Or do we all have to rely on their infrastructure?
I think in general, the strengths and the benefit of the Web3 over Web2 is not even the technology is important. We have the decentralized technology where we can own our money, our data, and so on and so forth. But in terms of power centralization, I mean, we still can come to it even in the Web3 world, but we are basically starting over as if in 90s and 80s, we were starting internet knowing what we can face and trying to at least prepare for that, because when we were starting the Web 1, Web 2, we didn't know what problems we can face, that power centralization and the deplatformization, all the problems we have now in the Web 2 world. Now we basically know these problems, so we can try to avoid them. It's not certain that we will, but at least we know them and we can try. So I'm hopeful that we'll come to the Web3 world, the decentralized world, where Meta and other monopolies, they don't have so much power, because right now it's getting out of control. I mean, they don't even show they care about the users. Users mean nothing to them because they already have all the data. So, okay, we'll deplatform this person. A small person, small business, medium business, big business, or a politic, or like a politician, like Trump. I mean, you can think anything of Trump, but if a company can shut a big politician, I mean, I don't think it's a good thing.
No, I think like companies should be more neutral and not take a political side, because every political side also comes with, let's say, opinions and maybe even propaganda. Yes. So it's really, so I'm really careful reading the news, because you have to take that with a grain of salt, because, you know, like this is just one part of the story, and usually there's many news outlets and news media companies, but they're kind of connected and they're kind of owned by the same company. So, I mean, from a capitalist standpoint, you know, BlackRock and Vanguard. So, yeah, I think that's right. I'm thinking like, if I was if I had a company I would like to sell in the Web3 and would like to prepare, how would you actually do that and or think about that? Is it too early, or would you already think about like commercial uses for Web3?
Mm-hmm.
Metaverse.
Yeah, I mean, right now, most of the cases of e-commerce in Metaverse are related to NFTs. I mean, there are quite a lot of shops, like digital fashion is booming now.
Yeah.
So you can buy some apparel and like have some app where with a camera where you see your real you. With some cool, very futuristic clothes. There are some companies which already connect that metaverse to the real world. For example, there are some very exciting startups that tokenize real physical art, like from the top galleries, and basically it's a perfect use case for metaverse, where you can being in the metaverse, going to that gallery in the metaverse, you can buy a piece or a full painting or a sculpture, and you will have the NFT, but owning that NFT proves that you actually own the original piece of art, which can be stored at your place, or it can be stored at some, I don't know, at art gallery, whatever. But these use cases are appearing more and more. I haven't seen though any like hardcore e-com, like selling, I don't know, supplements or selling whatever in the metaverse. But I mean, we'll get there, because metaverse is also a tool where you can more easily buy stuff, because you can see it from different angles. You can, I mean, it's more immersive, so it's kind of easier to buy in many e-com categories.
I see. If I wanted to build my own metaverse, how would I start this? Have you thought about that?
I have a couple of friends building metaverses, and in general, I would say that the market is still very blue. I mean, we're very far from being in the red ocean. But I personally haven't thought of that. It looks to me, I mean, you first need to have like a very solid team of co-founders with very different expertise. I personally haven't thought of that, but if somebody wants to do it, it's the perfect time. Try. Crypto is about trying.
I mean, you're going against Facebook and against their billions and billions. So I think it's fairly competitive already, I think.
In this sense, yes, but in our world, I mean, the problem the Web 3.0 world is creating are becoming so much visible even to a general internet user that at some point people may start boycotting these companies. I mean, it's still mostly, these problems are mostly visible to the professionals in this field, like both in the Web 2 and Web 3.0 world. And that's why there is a huge brain drain from Web 2 to Web 3.0 world, even from the biggest companies. Every week we see many people moving from Facebook, YouTube, Google, whatever, to Web 3.0 companies. General public is already seeing these problems because a lot of accounts are banned for no reason. You don't have basically support, no way of feedback. You're just banned and that's it. You had a profile for years. You had maybe an online business for years, and suddenly Facebook decides, and not even Facebook, in most cases, it's algorithm and maybe a glitch in the algorithm. That bans your account, and boom, you don't have a business anymore.
Yeah. These blockings happen by an algorithm. That's very disturbing. That's very interesting, and some people lose their businesses there. That's absolutely right. So I like the application that you mentioned with Ko-Fi, in which you try to revolutionize the value chain of music creators. Can you explain a little bit more, please, what the problem in the music industry is right now and how you want to solve it?
As I mentioned, one of the big problems is transparency and fairness of the distribution of the value created. I'm also quite cautious of saying, okay, labels are bad, because that's a main narrative in the market now. But most people who say that, it looks like they are either neglecting or deliberately not talking about the fact that label is a function. They have a marketing function, distribution function, and few other functions. So if you just create an NFT marketplace for music, that won't solve the problem, because, okay, I can publish the music, but I can publish the music as well on Spotify myself. That won't make me popular, that won't make me sales, and so on and so forth. Labels are actually doing marketing and a lot of other stuff. But at the same time, there is a lot of space to optimize that and deliver more value to the artists. Transparency is another big thing, because, okay, the artists don't even know how much their art is actually earning money, and what percentage are they getting from that. Another thing, the fans are totally excluded from that value chain in terms of they bring value, but they don't get any value in return. I mean, they get the art, but they could actually, and with NFT it's possible, they can get a monetary value as well. They can participate actively in distribution of that art and get some royalties because of that. And again, NFT technology helps seamlessly and very easily distribute even micropayments to everyone involved. So I would say that a lot of the areas where we are personally as a co-founder, as a lab, experimenting, it's art creation and collaboration between different artists. It's revenue distribution. It's monetization for the artists.
Mm-hmm.
And also, and it's involvement of the fans in that value chain. So as a lab, we don't have ready solution. No one on the market has. This market, basically, the music NFTs is less than 1 year old. So no one has ready solutions, and that's why we call ourselves lab, because we experiment, we try to find ready solutions. Once we find, we share them with the market or build our own products to help the market grow.
How is your business model actually with co-fire? I mean, and understand the value for artists to do NFTs and have that kind of like more chance of getting money for their artwork. But what's actually your role in it with co-fire?
So we are helping some artists like release their music, their art on NFT, but that's not our business model. That's more of an that's the way we test our hypothesis. So we probably will have some small operational cut from that, but we'll try to make it as minimum as possible. And the business model will be creating the actual products, some protocols for the music NFTs, and the protocols they normally earn on the very small commissions on the operations happening on that protocols.
Very cool.
Like the micro payments.
Cool. Yeah, thank you very much. That was very interesting. As a last question, like, what would be your best tip for people who want to get involved into Web3 and would like to start a Web3 business or work in that space, given the fact that they have no idea how to start and they're beginners? What are your best tips on that?
So starting a business, if you are not in the Web3 world, is I would say the easiest way will be starting to get involved, like networking, going to conferences and understanding the structure of that market, and then you can understand how you can apply your own ideas to that new paradigm. And in terms of just getting involved, like as a starting to work in the Web3 world, it's pretty much the same. Though here you can join these DAOs, these communities, start to get involved in these discords, and you see how it's working. Then you can start contributing with your own expertise. It can be writing articles, it can be some research, whatever. Right now there is a very big lack of talent in that market, and if you spend maybe 2-3 hours every day for a few months, you will get such a huge expertise because it's a very new market. So every expert that is really devoted to that market has very high chances of getting paid pretty fast. And even in the very beginning, you can start contributing, and some contributor roles are already paid ones, either in some existing crypto or sometimes in the future tokens of this community. And future tokens, though they are kind of worthless at the time being, they have much more potential to grow 10x, 100x, whatever, when the project takes off. So I would say you need to be very you need first to get the motivation. If you are motivated enough, you'll like dive into it. Like first time when I got involved in crypto, first 3 months, I was working 24/7, literally, there. I went to US to visit my cousin and who I haven't seen for many years. And I lived at her house and I haven't seen her pretty much because was so much immersed in this world, was so much exciting. So first get a motivation, get excited, and then everything will happen. You'll find the community, you'll find the way to contribute, to learn, to earn, and to grow as an expert in this market.
Thank you. That's awesome. If someone wants to get in touch with you or is an artist and wants you to help them, how can they reach you the best?
Probably I'm mostly active these days on Twitter because Twitter is the main social network right now for Web3 and crypto. I mean, hopefully we'll have a decentralized version of Twitter soon because Twitter also has all that problems of deplatformization. Yeah. I'm on Twitter. It's value tokenized, one word. And also Telegram at Tony Simonovsky. I think it will be better to write that down under the video.
Yeah. All right. Tony, thank you so much. I really enjoyed this talk and I'm looking already forward to the next time. Thank you.
Thank you, Sven. It was great talking.
If you enjoyed this episode, hit the subscribe button and never miss an episode of Svencast again.